One of the problems you'll often encounter when photographing a beautiful scene like the treasury at Petra here is that it'll be overrun with other sightseers. Now, of course, the best thing to do here would be to wait for another time, perhaps at the start or end of the day when the tour buses will have gone. But if that's not an option, we can often improve things afterwards. And I'll show you how we can do this using Affinity Photo to remove the people and come up with a much cleaner scene like this. So let's get cracking here. We'll go to our starting image here. I'm going to zoom in a little closer here. Now you can use the keyboard shortcut Command or Control and plus to zoom in, minus will zoom out, and that's very useful when you're retouching like this. And the first thing I'll do here is add a new pixel layer. And that way I can retouch on this empty layer while sampling from the background layer. Now, the tool I'm going to be using most here for my retouching is the in-painting brush tool, and you'll find that in the toolbar over here alongside several other useful retouching tools like the healing brush and the patch tool. But I'm going to stick with the in-painting brush tool for now. Now in the tool options I need to make sure I have it set to current layer and below. That way I can paint on my empty layer while sampling from the background layer, and that keeps my edits non-destructive. Now let's zoom in a little closer here and I'll show you. If we paint over this figure on the left here, I'm just using the left and right square bracket keys to resize my brush tip, which is a handy keyboard shortcut for any brush based tool in Affinity Photo. Then I can paint over the figure and the tool will generate new pixels for me based on the surrounding area, and you can see how it does a pretty good job of filling in that area. Now it's not perfect over the wall there, but it's good enough for now and I can always improve that later on. So I could try going over all of these different figures individually with the in-painting tool, but I'm feeling a bit lazy here, so I'm going to try and whiz over them all at once. So I'm just going to take one pass over them all like this, making sure I'm including the shadows as well as the figures here. So I'm keeping my mouse button held down. I want to try and get them all in one go like this, including these guys in the background here as well. And I'm also going to sort of eat into the horse in the foreground here. Now I want to preserve the horse for my finished image, but for now I'm not worried about going over that area. All I'm really interested in is getting a nice clean area of this nice sandy ground that I can use for my image. So I've covered that area, I'll release and we'll see how the tool does. And you can see how it's generated quite a nice area of sandy ground for me there. Now with these areas here, if I attempted to go over it, you can see in this case the tool may slip up, and you can see how it's generated extra areas of the horse there, which is not what I want. So I'm going to undo that with Command or Control and Z, and I'm going to switch to the clone tool. Again, I'll make sure it's set to current layer and below, and I'm going to hold Alt and sample a clean area to the left over here, and then I'm going to paint over the edge like this to try and remove some of these areas. And I'll quickly paint over these areas too, just holding Alt to sample from the areas nearby. And I'm going to do the same down below the horse's neck here like this to get rid of that little patch there. And also there's this camel's head poking out the top of the horse's head that I'll remove as well. And then I'll switch back to the in-painting tool and we'll see how it tackles these areas at the top over here. Now, of course, these areas are going to be slightly more tricky because the figures are stood in front of a more detailed backdrop. But again, you can see how the tool pulls in those details from beside and actually does a very good job of filling in and removing the figures. Well, there are just a few more figures here that we want to get rid of with the in-painting tool. And again, with these guys here, I'm going to switch to the clone tool and I can hit S for that and then just quickly clone out these areas at the top and at the bottom here. Switch back to the in-painting tool and remove the rest. And then I think just a little bit more cloning and in-painting before we're finished. So I'll quickly hide this area here with the camel. And there's a guy in the background here that I want to remove. I want to keep the driver, of course. Let's quickly fill that area in like that. And then these last two figures over here, we'll see how the in-painting tool tackles them. So now if we zoom out, we'll see how we're looking, and if I just toggle that top layer off and on, I'm pretty happy with that. There's a little foot down here that I want to remove, so I'll switch to the clone tool and just quickly get rid of that one. So that's my rough retouching done, but now I need to get a little bit more precise. So I'm going to use a layer mask now. I'm going to hold Alt and click the layer mask icon here at the bottom of the layers panel, and that adds a full black mask. You can see there's my full black mask in my layers panel, which hides everything on that layer. But while this mask thumbnail here is highlighted, I can paint with white to reveal parts of that layer. So I can grab my brush tool, I can hit B for that. I'll set my color to white, and then I can paint with white to reveal areas. So I'm revealing parts of my retouching layer, and you can see how this quickly allows me to remove these figures. So now I just need to be a bit more precise when we come in close to the horse's head. So again, I'm using the left and right square bracket keys to resize my brush tip and very quickly paint to reveal my retouching layer just in the areas that I want. If I go over, say, part of the horse that I want to retain, I can hit X to flip my color to black, and then I can paint to hide parts of my retouching layer. So we can use white to reveal or black to hide. So again, flipping back to white, I can quickly paint over this area. And we just need to carry on in the same way over the rest of our image. And after a few minutes spent perfecting my layer mask, I'm nearly there with the image, but I think we could do with just tidying up. There are those little problem areas that don't look quite perfect. So to do this, I'm going to make another new empty pixel layer. In fact, let's rename our layers here. We'll call this one Rough Retouch, and we'll call the top layer Final Cloning. And then I can hit S for my clone tool once again, and I'm just going to use it to perfect some of these little rough patches. So I'm going to hold Alt and paint to sample areas nearby and just try and get it looking a bit better around some of these little areas that weren't quite perfect from our original in painting. So again, this might take a couple of minutes. So after a little time spent with my clone tool, this is my finished image. If we just toggle off those layers there, we can see this was our original cluttered scene, and by using a combination of the in-painting tool, the clone tool and layer masking, we're able to come up with something that's much cleaner and much more pleasing.